Welcome to our continuing journey. The colony of Virginia became one of the first 13 states after the Revolutionary War. The Kentucky County of Virginia was declared a state in 1792. West Virginia did not separate until the mid-Civil War. In a brief summary like this, it is possible to encapsulate the diversity of Virginia's legacy only anecdotally. Its major role driving the pre-war colonization of the tidal region and east coast of America is often lost in the fog of academic history. But clues of the dynamic struggle between natives and interlopers persist today in the landmarks and preserved wild land that was a staging ground for the relentless push of Germans, Irish, English, and even liberated and escaped slaves into the western frontier. There are many facets to Virginia's diverse geography, but colonial settler, trade, and militia routes generally clung to passage along the Potomac River from the Chesapeake watershed and down the valleys of the Potomac's tributaries, including the Shenandoah River. As mentioned before, vast plantations spread across the flatter eastern half of Tidewater region up to the Blue Ridge Mountain terrain, a rather modest thrust of rocky forest area, and then across the fertile Shenandoah Valley to the Appalachian Allegheny wilderness. Before the War of Independence, the Chesapeake Bay region of Virginia, including narrow land patents along both sides of the Potomac River, was primarily agricultural, with a steady influx of entrepreneurs developing sprawling plantations inhabited by family, but also by clusters of slaves and indentured servants. Tobacco, horses, cows, and hogs, plus grain production, sustained settlements up and down the coastal areas from Carolina to Maryland and the Delaware River Basin. Small landholdings were absorbed as great plantations took their place. The average land patent in Virginia in the last decades of the 18th century granted title to from 600 to 800 acres, but some holdings covered between 10,000 and 20,000 acres. Most of the tobacco staple was shipped to England. Not surprising, since the settlers were mostly English. Wheat, oats, barley, and maize also were grown in large quantities, according to Bolton and Marshall. Hogs became so numerous that an active trade of pork for West Indies slaves, sugar, and rum materialized via New England coastal vessels. By the time he became president, George Washington amassed approximately 70,000 acres of land, scattered in 7 different states and the District of Columbia. He owned a couple of townhouses on Capitol Hill and 4 other lots in the soon-to-be capital city. He owned a half-acre lot and a townhouse in Alexandria, Virginia. He also owned thousands of acres of undeveloped land in the Ohio Valley and 4,000 acres of the Dismal Swamp. He had obtained a portion of these lands as payment for his service in the French and Indian War. George owned a lot in Winchester, 2 in Warm Springs, 6 in the Richmond area, and 1 near Williamsburg, in addition to 3 near Fredericksburg. This is according to accounts at the official Mount Vernon visitor site.
'Neath yon hill there lies a cavern. In its depth shall be thy grave. All its splendors are befilling, burial place of Indian brave. All its walls are strangely sculptured, column high and chasm wide. 'Tis the place where all the shadows of the past years silent hide.
In the 1880s, the Shenandoah Valley Railroad was the only rail route to the caverns of Luray, and was the only line to the white sulfur, the warm, hot, healing, and other mineral springs of Virginia. The cave of Luray was accidentally discovered in digging down through a sinkhole by a Mr. Campbell, who was a professional cave hunter, and who was joined then in the enterprise by a Mr. Stebbins. The entrance to the cave was through the basement of a two-story frame house on the side of the mountain, where the visitors purchased tickets of admission at $1 a head. The Shenandoah River joins the Potomac at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. The valley of that name extends nearly 300 miles in the southwestern direction across Virginia to the Tennessee line, its width rarely exceeding 30 miles. The northern part of the valley initially was settled almost entirely by Germans. The first of the settlers came from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, around 1727, settling near Elkton. Others filtering southward included a group of 16 families from York, Pennsylvania, who settled at what is today Winchester. In 1734, Robert Harper founded Harpers Ferry, although the place was inhabited earlier by at least one trader. Remote settlements had already reached into the area that became West Virginia. Later, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad passes through the place, and here the Shenandoah Valley branch connected with the main line. The town, I quote, is noted for its beautiful scenery, which has made the place very popular as a summer resort, unquote. Harpers Ferry is often called the Switzerland of America, and rightly so. The prospects are magnificent. The walks and drives lead today into 3 states. Most notable, of course, this remote mountain town assumed the aura of a desperate failed abolitionist plot orchestrated by John Brown and some 21 other supporters. Their assault on a weapons stockpile in town fizzled, but the brazen escape and subsequent execution of Brown and some of his associates was indeed, quote, a shot heard round the world. The echo still hasn't subsided. John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave, spread over it the blood-stained flag of his song. For the sun to bleach, the wind and the birds to tear, the snow to cover over with a pure fleece, and the New England cloud to work upon, with the gray absolution of its slow, most lilac-smelling rain, until there is nothing there that ever knew a master or a slave, or brooding on the symbol of a wrong. Threw down the irons in the field of peace. John Brown is dead. He will not come again. A stray ghost walker with a ghostly gun. Virginia's governor, Alexander Spotswood, set out with maybe 30 horsemen from Williamsburg, the Virginia colony capital, in 1716, in a half-hearted search for a northwest passage over the great, quote, Blue Mountains. It was believed that the lakes of Canada must be on the other side of the Blue Ridge. By September, the expedition apparently was watering the horses in the Shenandoah River. These travelers may not have been the first white men in this tender wilderness, but accounts of other earlier forays are sketchy. The Virginia General Assembly in 1705 passed a law encouraging trade with the inland Indians, providing that any person who should make discover of, quote, any town or nation of Indians situated or inhabiting to the westward of or between the Appalachian Mountains should enjoy for the space of 14 years the exclusive right to trade with them. This according to Henning's statutes. Virginia contains about 500 miles of the Appalachian Trail. That's more miles than any other state. 100 miles of which lie in the Shenandoah National Park and parallel Skyline Drive. The trail parallels the famous Blue Ridge Parkway, goes through Mount Rogers National Recreation Area, and the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests. It ends in Damascus, known as Trail Town, USA. Thank you for joining me on the last of 3 video blogs featuring Mother Virginia. We will next focus on videos driven by photographs of Washington, D.C., the eventual capital of the United States. Join me by signing up to PhotoSpeak Productions or go to my website. Thank you.